There's a species in Siberia that gets high on purpose. Reindeer. They dig through the snow, find a specific red and white mushroom, eat it, and enter a genuine altered state. And when they run out of mushrooms, they drink the urine of the reindeer who ate them first because the drug survives the trip. Hold that image. We're coming back to it because it's a clue to a much bigger question, one that turns out to be one of the oldest questions about what makes us human. When did we first decide to breathe something on fire? On purpose. Now, when I say smoking, forget everything you're picturing. Forget cigarettes. Forget cigars. Forget the coworker who ropes you into a 10-minute conversation by the back door. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the first time a human being pulled burning smoke into their lungs, knowing exactly what they were doing and wanting to. And here's the claim I'm going to defend for the next 10 minutes. The one that sounds insane until you look at the evidence. That moment is older than farming, older than writing, older than pottery, possibly older than Homo sapiens itself. The urge to inhale smoke might not be a habit we picked up. It might be something we've never not had. Let's build this from the ground up, because before anyone smokes anything, you need one thing: fire. And humans have been playing with fire for a staggeringly long time. In a cave in South Africa called Wonderwork, researchers found ash and burnt bone that point to controlled fire around 1 million years ago. Not a lightning strike, not a wildfire. A fire someone kept going, deep inside a cave, on purpose. 1 million years ago, we weren't even our own species yet. That was an earlier human. Heavier brow, smaller skull, and precisely zero interest in your opinion about it. Now here's the part almost nobody stops to think about. Every single one of those ancestors for hundreds of thousands of years sat in smoke. Every night. There was no chimney, there was no ventilation. If you wanted warmth, if you wanted light, if you wanted to not get eaten in the dark, you sat in the smoke and you breathed it. For 1 million years, being human meant being a passive smoker. But, and this is where the story cracks wide open, not all of that smoke was the same. When you burn a plant, you don't just get smoke. You get chemistry, and which chemistry depends entirely on which plant. Some plants, when they burn, release compounds that reach up into your nervous system and start flipping switches. And plenty of those plants, cannabis, wild tobacco relatives, all kinds of others, grow wild across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Right where our ancestors were sitting. Right next to the fire. So do the math. Sooner or later, someone tossed the wrong bush on the flames, downwind of the wrong person, and that person had the strangest, best night of their life, with absolutely no idea why. And here's the detail that makes this more than a fun theory. Your brain came pre-wired for it. You have receptors that respond to compounds in cannabis smoke. They didn't evolve because of cannabis. They're part of a system your body runs anyway, managing your mood, your memory, your appetite. But because they already existed, the very first human to breathe that smoke didn't experience noise or confusion. Their brain experienced recognition, like a lock that had been sitting there for 1 million years finally meeting its key. That's the theory of how this really began. Not a discovery, not an invention, an accident, repeated enough times that one day someone decided to make it happen again on purpose. And the entire history of smoke, every ritual, every religion, every trillion-dollar industry that followed might trace back to one tired human and one unlucky shrub. Now, I can already hear the comment. Okay, but where's the proof? Fair. So let's talk about why proof, in this specific case, is almost impossible to find. We have stone tools that are 3 million years old. Why? Because stone doesn't rot. It just sits there, waiting to be found. But a pouch of dried leaves, a wooden pipe, a handful of seeds someone was about to burn, give it a few hundred years in the ground and it's gone, dissolved back into the dirt centuries before any archaeologist showed up with a brush. So when people say there's no evidence of smoking that far back, what they actually mean is this. The evidence would have vanished either way. Absence of proof isn't proof of absence. It's just a plant that decomposed on schedule. But we're not working on vibes here. There is hard evidence, and it's wild. Go to the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia to a burial site from around 500 BC. Archaeologists found braziers packed with superheated stones and burned into them. Cannabis residue with unusually high THC. Not the weak, wild stuff you'd use for rope. The potent kind, placed in a grave. as part of a ritual. Someone, 2,500 years ago, chose the strong batch for the dead. And then there's my favorite character in this whole story, a Greek historian named Herodotus. Around the same era, he described a people called the Scythians. They'd build a small sealed tent, heat stones until they glowed, throw hemp onto them, climb inside, breathe deep, and, in his words, howl with joy. For centuries, historians rolled their eyes. Classic Herodotus, always exaggerating. Then archaeologists opened Scythian burial mounds, bronze braziers, heated stones, hemp residue, exactly what he described. Down to the detail, the man wasn't exaggerating. If anything, he was underselling it. Now let's push the clock back hard. In 2021, in a desert in Utah, researchers dug up an ancient hearth and found wild tobacco seeds inside it. Not a few strays blown in by the wind. A concentration that looked deliberate. The age? Around 12,000 years. That's thousands of years before anyone in that region made a single pipe or piece of pottery. People were putting tobacco into fire long before they had any of the tools we associate with smoking. And that cracks open a question I can't stop thinking about. If people in North America were doing this 12,000 years ago, what was everyone else on the planet doing with their local plants at the exact same time? Because 12,000 years ago, humans were everywhere. And the drive to change how your own mind feels, that's not an American thing. That's not a European thing. That's a human thing. Which finally brings us back to the reindeer. There's an idea in science, taken seriously, not fringe, called the intoxication hypothesis. And it goes like this. You have basic drives, hunger, thirst, sex, the hardwired stuff evolution installed to keep you alive and keep the species going. One researcher argued there's a fourth one hiding in there, the drive to alter your own consciousness, to get out of your own head on purpose. And the evidence is that it isn't even limited to us. Elephants seek out fermented fruit. Big cats roll in intoxicating plants. And those reindeer in Siberia, the ones from the very beginning, will eat the mushroom and then recycle it through each other rather than go without. An animal is drinking another animal's urine so the high doesn't have to end. That is not a casual preference. That is a drive. So if the pull toward altered states is this deep, this ancient, and this widespread across species, then the idea that early humans deliberately burned certain plants to feel something isn't a stretch at all. It's almost the expected outcome. They'd have learned it the hard way too. Which smoke made you feel wonderful? Which smoke made you feel like you were dying? And with some plants, that's a lesson you only get to learn once. The ones who guessed right remembered. They told the others. And they passed it down. Not in books, not in schools, but mouth to ear, in the dark, around a fire. Here's a twist most people never hear. For a long time, smoke wasn't a vice. It was a prescription. One of the oldest medical texts on Earth comes from ancient Egypt, around 1550 BC. And it describes treating problems in the throat and lungs by having the patient inhale the smoke of specific heated herbs. Read that again. They treated lung problems with smoke. Sounds insane until you realize some of those herbs genuinely do something when inhaled. Ancient Indian medicine had an entire discipline for it, with named plants, named conditions, exact preparations. The Greeks did it. Hippocrates, the guy your doctor swears an oath named after, wrote about breathing herbal vapors to treat disease. The logic wasn't stupid either. Smoke reaches the lungs instantly. If the plant does something useful, that's a fast delivery system. We still use that exact idea today. It's called an inhaler. We just thankfully dropped the set it on fire part. But I'd be lying if I left it there. Because the story has a dark final act. For thousands of years in the Americas, tobacco was sacred. It was used in healing, in prayer, in sealing peace between tribes. Blowing smoke onto someone was a blessing. A shaman smoking wasn't taking a break. He was opening a door between worlds. When something is holy, you don't chain smoke it in front of the TV. Then tobacco crossed the ocean. And within a few centuries, European industry took something people had spent millennia treating with reverence and turned it into a mass-produced, chemically tuned, maximally addictive product. They sold it to children. They hired doctors to vouch for it. They buried their own evidence that it caused cancer. A shaman in 500 BC and a tobacco executive in 1960 worked with the very same plant. They had nothing else in common. Same smoke. Two completely different souls. So, when did humans first start smoking? The honest answer is, we don't know the exact day, and we never will. The hard evidence takes us back 12,000 years, but the urge underneath it to change your mind, to share that feeling with the people around you, to send a breath of smoke somewhere you can't follow, that's older than any object we've ever dug up. It might be as old as fire itself. It might be as old as the moment we became clever enough to look at a burning plant and think, last time this happened, I felt different. Let's do that again. That's not addiction. That's not weakness. That's the same spark that built everything else about us. So the next time you catch wood smoke on a cold night, or lean toward a summer fire, understand that you're plugged into something almost unimaginably old, a thin, unbroken thread that runs back through every human who ever lived, past the shamans, past the Scythians howling in their tents, past the very first person who breathed that smoke and felt their brains say, "There you are," all the way to the dark and the flame, and the very first face lit up by it. You're doing what we have always done. You're just breathing.